Gruesome Magazine.
Hello, once again, I'm Doc Rotten, and this is Horror News Radio, the official Gruesome Magazine podcast. Back with me again this week are the scariest, goriest, bloodiest co-host on the net. And tonight we're traveling back to 2013 to cover Hannibal Season 1, Episode 12, Releves. Oh boy, it's the penultimate episode, and this is going to be fun. But let me introduce who my co-hosts are, starting off with the one and only Christopher G. Moore, award-winning filmmaker. Say hello. Chateau d'Am, Hannibal. Okay.
My Hannibal wine shirt. Yeah. Doing wonderful. Glad we're getting towards the end of this first season. And I feel like I did back in the day. It's like, oh, the ending of this sort of like makes you want to see more. So.
It does. It does. And I'm like, I found myself worried again. And I'm like, I know the ending. All right. Also joining us is podcasting rockstar and international cosplay queen, Vanessa Thompson. Vanessa, how you doing?
I'm a vampire.
You're already.
I'm a spooky vampire.
So spooky.
Oh, spooky. All ready for Halloween next year?
I am. I'm ready. Spooky. Well, you know what I was not ready for? Tonight's episode. Or the episode we're covering tonight, yes. Especially with some of the things that Mr. Hannibal Lecter says in this episode. I was like, what?
He's straight up. There's the law, doesn't he? All right, let's what? Let's see what we're in for tonight. Oh my gosh, we are talking Hannibal, season 1, episode 12, Relevés. Yeah, go for it. It aired Friday, June 13th. Now, I don't know what the Friday could have been on Wednesday. It's June 13th, 2013. Director is Michael Reimer. Writers are Chris Brancato and Brian Fuller. The creators, of course, Brian Fuller, based on the characters from the book Red Dragon by Thomas Harris. Tonight, Gillian Anderson returns as Dr. Bedelia, and Casey Roll returns as Abigail Hobbs. And, of course, the rest of the cast is here to make things nice and spicy. Yes. As you can see, we head back to the what do you call that shed full of antlers. Oh my god. Following an offhand comment by Graham, a comb left in the chamber of Georgia Madchen, who accidentally sparks a fire inside her hyperbaric chamber, holy cow English, is burned to death. Angered, Graham deduces that several recent murders were all the works of a copycat patterning. That's a weird word. After recent serial murders, and that Georgia was killed because she may have remembered the face of whoever had killed Dr. Sutcliffe. Oh my. Oh my. All right. So what we do here is we go through and give our first impressions. We talk about the show a little bit, and then we wrap things up with a favorite, our final thoughts, our favorite scene, and a score 1 to 5. Yeah, we're going to do it. All right. That's what you want to stick around for, by the way, because that's fun. That's fun. Yeah. All right. We are going to do this. Vanessa, you are up first because while Christopher and I, along with Dave Dreher and Thomas Mariani, we did the Hannibal fan podcast. Although we didn't cover season 1, we did cover season 2 and season 3. This is actually a first watch for you, as it has made its way to Netflix. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Let's find out what you thought of episode 12.
Wow. I didn't realize how close we were to the end. I didn't realize this was the penultimate episode until after I watched it. Wow. I feel like we're finally seeing Hannibal come a bit unhinged, but in a very contained kind of way, right? It's like he's allowing himself to become this unhinged, because all of a sudden, like a magician, he's going to be like, it's Will Graham. And everyone's going to believe it. I'm losing my mind over it. Honestly, I'm losing my mind over it. The what he's doing in this episode is insane. Just the way that he is manipulating everything. Even when he's getting new information, he just folds it right into the lie to work for him. It is so beautifully crafted as a screenplay. But man, it's just I could just spew out the whole thing right now, but every single moment that he's on screen is just incredible to watch because he is just the puppeteer the whole entire time.
Yeah, he has great dialogue this week. With the, what is it?
And we see everybody but Beverly, right?
Yeah,
everybody but Beverly. I guess, and Dr. Bloom.
Dr. Bloom.
Well, yeah, and then Dr. Chilton. But you know what? I'm back to hating Freddie Lounds.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, we always hate Freddie hate. All right. Let's find out what Christopher G. Moore thought. How did it feel revisiting this particular episode?
Well, you know, it's been a little bit surreal because it's like I haven't watched it in a while. So, you know, you have those moments that you maybe kind of forgot, but then you have those moments that you remember. So you're like, oh, I know what I know. You know, like the whole hyperbaric chamber thing. I was like, oh, I know where this is heading, and I don't look forward to seeing this again. Because I already have a problem with like claustrophobia in general, just being trapped in that little container, but to not be able to escape it if it catches on fire is like crap. But yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny because the title of the episode is what, Releves, or however you pronounce it, and it's a dish that's served before the entree in order to replace it or relive it. And this whole season, I'm reliving again and taking it in. And I think even though this episode is probably more I guess conversational, and it's less killer of the week type thing, it's just as impactful because we have a lot of revelations. We have Will Graham, who's in some ways is becoming more cognizant of what's going on. At the same time, he's still having his little blackouts. But I guess the big thing is the whole Hannibal moment between him and Abigail Hobbs. That moment where you find out he's just a curious little mouse. You know, he's wanting to find out. He keeps playing with these people's lives just to see curious what would happen. You know, I mean, it's just it's just like you know, somebody who's playing with their action figures to see what happened if I set this action figure on fire, or if I did this to this person. And so you really know that like he's the ultimate manipulator. And I think there's one small moment that if you don't really pay attention to, but it's good to do that, is that there's a moment where he talks to Jack Crawford, and where he's sort of like twisting the information to making it seem more about Will.
Yes.
And possibly being guilty. And then at the very end of it, he looks so concerned. And then when Jack Crawford walks out of the room, there's a slight change in expression. It goes from concern to like, I got away with it.
Yes.
But I mean, and I think any normal actor would have just like done the, would have done like a big creepy smile like the Joker or something. But him, it's just a slight change to where you see it change on a dime. And I love that moment.
When that happened, I was like, look at his face.
Yeah. Because it sits there and he's so concerned. He's like, yo, I'm concerned about my friend. And
so meaningful. Like,
yeah. And it's just a small moment that if you just looked away or you didn't really pay attention to it, because he's like, it's just, not to that level, but it's such a slight change. You see how evil he is. Even though he's the guy that you love to hate. And, and then later on when he has this little thing where he's just talking about like, he's even bragging to Abigail. He's like, have you killed as many as my dad? He's like, more.
More
he's
than
like,
your father.
I was like, oh man, and he's like comforting her, and she's just like, she thought her dad was bad.
Yeah. It was great to see those revelations, him saying all that stuff so freely to someone so like young and innocent in a way, they've been trying to protect her this whole time. And you see like just shattering on her face as he's saying, I just wanted to see what would happen. And when I killed her, when I killed him.
Yeah. And also you just feel so bad for Will because he's been manipulated all this time, and to the point where Hannibal's manipulated his medical information. They still haven't figured out what's wrong with him, and he's still dealing with his blackouts and having hallucinations, and and he even has that hallucination where he thinks he's just rammed Abigail on one of those
What a crazy
antlers.
moment.
Or the moment where he wakes up and he sees that the woman burning when she's walking all jittery, like like a character from what was it, Jacob's Ladder or something. And then he sees her and she catches on fire and then turns into the stag.
Mm-hmm.
And you see that how his gears are turning, where he's starting to change himself. So yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful episode that I think I could see some people maybe having a problem with it because it's so chatty, but it's all informed, even the situation where, I mean, I love all the conversations when Jack Crawford goes to Bedelia and has that conversation, and you can see the gears turning in her head, how she's trying to say the right things. And then when Hannibal shows up, she's got to watch and say what she says too.
Are we ever going to find out what happened
with her and her?
Maybe.
Like, clearly Hannibal was there for that.
Yeah. Well, you will find out because they actually have a flashback, but I'm not going to say what's happened.
Nope.
Although I do, again, that was, as I like to usually point out, our Silence of the Lambs moment was when she told Jack Crawford the lie that he swallowed his tongue, which is a reference to Miggs, that he talked Miggs into swallowing his own tongue in the Silence of the Lambs.
Flinger.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's not talk about the fling part. But yeah, it's I mean, the dialogue in this episode where there's so underlying elements to every piece of dialogue, because even Jack Crawford is sort of putting two together about Will Graham, in
the wrong way.
Yeah. And I mean, it's which builds to how the end of this season happens and how we roll into next season. So, but yeah, it's what I love this show so much, because the dialogue is so nuanced and detailed and interesting, and every character has their own way of how they're trying to keep certain information up their sleeve, and then at the same time, other people are lying or saying or manipulating what they say to give a certain way. So yeah, but then there's so many people that are being overly manipulated, and of course the main manipulator is the devil himself, which is how Mads wanted to play that character, as the devil. And that's basically what he is. He's just playing with people and seeing what people do if he manipulates them one way or another, whether it drives them crazy or, whatever. So yeah, this another great episode for this season.
Yeah, it is actually a great episode, and I didn't realize that there. We really don't have murderer of the week, or serial killer of the week. We have the one death at the beginning, and then it's all dialogue from there on. Maybe aside from one morgue scene to give us a little, gruesome thrill. Everything else is, imaginary, right? But the dialogue is so rich with this episode. Like you said, it's the character building, the revelations, the tension comes from people being put in harm's way or manipulated in harm's way. You're worried about Will Graham, and then the confrontation, even though it's just verbal, between Abigail and Hannibal is really tense. And when he's like brushing the tears in her hair away, you're like, oh, is he going to snap her neck? What's he going to do? Right?
I know. And then the episode ends.
Yeah. Like, where's the knife? What's happening? And I'm like, saying, beware, there's probably a knife. Don't look. And it just ends right with them looking at each other. So what's going on? And Will's doing his usual Will thing and doesn't know. So that's going to work out in Hannibal's favor, right? Oh my God. And I'm, you know, do we believe that Jack Crawford could be swayed so easily? I mean, maybe temporarily, but I mean, was that believable that he would? I guess it kind of added up, though, right? And
and he's looking for an answer. He's so desperate to find an answer, I think, at this point that we've come to, and not understanding what's happening with Will and not wanting to believe that it's his fault, right? That might be the biggest thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you sort of think about like how he's done all these things to push Will Graham, and so he already feels guilty about pushing his last trainee into the situation that she got into, where she's disappeared, and all they found is that missing arm, and so he also wants to nip it in the bud or whatever, and doesn't want to continue. Maybe if he's pushed the guy into like, you know, being a serial killer, because you know he's all about like the clues, and if Will's affiliated with all these different crimes and stuff, and he knows how these certain people have been killed, he could also be the copycat killer because he's seen how they were killed. So he's like the perfect patsy for everything.
Right.
Yeah, and Hannibal can just, you know, ever so effortlessly place clues here and there that would make it seem like that's what he did. Like when he played that recording, I was like, you bastard.
I know, out of context.
Right? At leist Dr. Dumonier wouldn't do that, right? In a way. I don't know. I'm really I'm suspicious of her.
Well, just wait.
I know something's going on, and I don't know what happened with her altercation. And I think with the way it looked in this episode, because when she was talking to Jack, I thought she was, at that point, I was like, oh, well, she's fooled me this whole time. She's actually being manipulated by Hannibal. And then when she talks to Hannibal and says, you need to stop what you're doing, I thought, okay, maybe not. But now I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea. Like, honestly, everybody's being manipulated by Hannibal. So why wouldn't she be manipulated by Hannibal?
Yeah, you'll find out more about that, especially in the third season.
Yeah, she's just a little bit more cunning than a lot of the others. You said you were back to hating Freddie Lowndes, but you got to be proud of her in a way. She figured it out about Abigail, right?
Yeah, I really did like her line about smart girls and then smart girls that grow up. Mm-hmm. I thought that was really good and fitting for her. I am hating on her because of how much she's hating on Will, and I know that's just going to play into what Hannibal's trying to do and make the case against Will even stronger. So in that ways, she annoys me a lot. But she's not dumb. That's the thing about her. She's not dumb. She's always been at these crime scenes first for whatever reason or another, and she's always managed to put herself right in the thick of everything going on. And honestly, I kind of thought Jack Crawford was there for her at first. I was a little bit lost in the whole thing that they were going for Abigail when it was her there. I was like, yes, finally.
I was a little surprised by that too, actually. Oh man, what else surprised you? Anything else there, Chris? Anything surprised you from coming back to this?
I think I mean, also you kind of it's interesting that there's that whole scene that takes place between Will and Abigail that's all a hallucination. But in that hallucination, he figures out that she's been helping, being the bait and helping her father with the crimes. Mm-hmm. And that's not what that's, on his own intuition, as opposed to Jack Crawford and them. They're sort of going by the clues and trying to figure stuff out. So that's kind of interesting, because I was thinking that whole thing didn't even take place. So his whole, the whole revelation, because even she says, like, how do you know this? Did Hannibal tell you this?
I know. It's got his clock working, doesn't it?
So yeah, because not only is that sort of hinting in that he's figured out her thing, but also that Hannibal's involvement in that. So I don't think I really thought about that as much as I did rewatching it.
Yeah, and who his figuring out who it is, he literally said it when he was talking to Hannibal. He said, it's somebody that has access to everything going on there, and he's looking at the person that has access to everything going on, not putting two and two together.
Yeah.
Because of the friendship, or you will, being blinded by it. So he isn't using that clock, or Hannibal's just too good at hiding.
Well, but if even, we talked about that one time where his expression changed, but even when you watch when he's talking to Will, you can see when he's sort of like thinking more about certain things. You can sort of see in Hannibal's eyes that he's like, "You're figuring me out. I don't like that." Yeah, I mean, he just says that just in his expression, and then his responses, you can sort of see how he's trying to push him off his scent. Yep. Because he knows, like, with him saying, like, I'm gonna take Abigail back to that cabin or whatever, and he doesn't like that idea because he knows that more of his secret will come out as well. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting things going on. I mean, Jack Crawford is definitely much more not a happy-go-lucky person. I don't know if just his wife's cancer and stuff, I don't know if that's bearing down on him to where he's, and he's also just frustrated because they have certain things that they've come about in the process of trying to figure out things that are not, they're sort of like now questioning, and like, maybe that guy wasn't the copycat killer, and, and he doesn't want to feel like that all this effort's been for naught, and to be embarrassed that they've made the wrong type of observations. And so, and if Will Graham is screwing that over, I can sort of understand that because that reflects on him as the person who's pushed him to the forefront to figure this shit out.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in all that, right? There's everything's piling up on Jack between the home stuff, the connection to the previous, the detective that got lost, and then and starting to get sloppy, if you will, to maybe not sloppy, but you know what I mean. They're a little careless. Let's say that, careless.
Yeah. Well, he's losing control.
Yeah, and I think he also feels responsible, right? So there's a little bit of guilt in there too.
There is that. Although one thing I did want to point out is I really love. There's the one scene between Bedelia and Hannibal where they're talking, and the scene ends where he like sits down next to her and she's standing by, and it's almost like a portrait, a family portrait, like a weird twisted family portrait where it's just like this wide shot and you got him sitting down and she's sitting behind.
Well, there's something else by it too, right? There's a representation there because she was sitting there in that seat when she was in charge.
When she was a colleague, was his colleague.
Well, just in that scene alone.
Yeah.
And then she got up and he circled around and then sat there and took control. So.
If he went full blast, he probably would have peed to stake his claim.
I don't know. Hannibal might be above that a little bit. He might be above that a little bit. All right. Well, there you go. That's our talk about episode 12 of Hannibal season 1. So what we do now is we wrap things up with our final thoughts. We do a score, and then we pick a favorite scene out of this. This is going to be a hard one because the scenes are so subtle, right? It's almost, they're all parts of a bigger piece and more so than usual. So it'll be interesting to see, but this is what you want to stick around for. But before we do, if you are still here, 1, thank you. 2, hit subscribe down below, and so you can find more, and hit the like button. That'll help others find us. Hit the bell if you want to be reminded when the next one comes out. And of course, we'd love to hear your thoughts. And for those who have been leaving comments on the previous episodes, thank you so much. We love reading them. And we're so happy that other people are revisiting Hannibal along with us. Quite a many. I am actually surprised and very happy to see. All right, let's do this. Let's do our final thoughts, our score, and favorite scene. Vanessa, you are up first.
Me. This was a great episode. They've really gotten really good at the end. so much is happening in this episode that that Hannibal is doing. We're really getting to see to the core of Hannibal Lecter in this, especially by the end of the episode. It starts out with this just insanely sweet act that he's doing, right? He brings Will soup because he's not feeling well. He brings him the chicken soup.
You made me chicken soup.
Because he's not feeling well. And the very next thing he does is burns a girl alive in an air chamber. Like, what? I can't believe this show. I honestly, sometimes as I'm watching it, I'm like, I can't believe this. I can't believe they were able to show this. I can't believe how well this is written. It's just great. You know, and I've already seen this episode once before because I stopped because I was getting a little too far ahead. And now that I'm rewatching, I'm re-remembering things. It's pretty much as if I'm watching it for the first time, but I'm still shocked every time. This episode definitely gets a 5 from me. This was a great episode. And because of that, there's so many scenes I could choose from for a favorite scene. Just scenes that shocked the hell out of me that happened in this episode.
You gotta do it though.
I know. Gosh. Okay, I know one of us is gonna pick one of these, hopefully, but I audibly gasped when we saw Will put Abigail on the horns.
Oh, yes.
I audibly gasped, and my mind was racing as to what the hell was going to happen now. What was going to happen now? And then we get that cut to what was actually happening. And my heart was just like pounding from that scene because it was so shocking to see that happen. You're thinking, okay, when they place them in that room together and everything that's going on with Will, you're thinking, okay, maybe this could happen, but it's not going to happen. We know Will Graham's not going to kill anybody, and then he does it, and you're like, what? I know. So I had to choose that one. There's a couple others that are right up there too.
I knew what was going on, and it still got me. Yeah. All right, Christopher G. Moore, give us your final thoughts, score, and favorite scene.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that. So I was kind of shocked. I kind of figured it wasn't real, but I was still shocked. I completely forgot that specific scene. So I was like, whoa. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of in shock as well. Yeah. So another wonderful episode that really delves into manipulation and how people are manipulating each other and manipulating data, manipulating information so that they can make other people look bad or make themselves look better. And then some people are just being heavily affected by that, whether it's Abigail or even Will Graham. So yeah, there's a lot of really wonderful conversations. We have that one really cool visual moment involving the fire. So we went from hot chicken soup to hot chicken a box.
That was wrong.
That's sorry. Sorry, not sorry. But
poor girl.
That made me laugh. I just came up with that. So yeah, there's some really wonderful conversation that sort of like are basically dialogue 101 on how to have characters sort of like talking about things, but you can sort of see their motivations and trying to manipulate each other. And also we have the great reveal of Hannibal, of him finally coming out and saying like, you know what? I'm an evil bitch and I've just been doing all this to mess around with your heads. And what you're going to do nothing about it because I'm a killer.
And now I'm going to eat you.
I'm more of a killer daddy than your killer daddy.
Oh my goodness.
So in the Hannibal formation.
What if he did that?
You know what? Mads could do that and make it seem less
it would work,
in living color. But yeah, another wonderful episode that really shows the strength of the show when it comes to dialogue scenes that sometimes can be in other shows can seem more expositional or boring. anytime these guys sit down to talk about things, it's intriguing and interesting because everybody's trying to like show their dominance. Jack Crawford's trying to show his dominance by showing up in these conversations. Other people are trying to show their dominance, whether it's Bedelia, whether it's Hannibal or Will Graham. Everybody's trying to show their dominance and trying to say, what they know is right, or what they think is right. And and we got to sort of see that definitely an ending that's very like, what's going to happen next? Same Hannibal channel, same Hannibal, network. So yeah, a really wonderful episode that really just makes me, even though I know how it ends, it makes me, ooh, I want to see what happens next. So yeah, it definitely gets a 5 out of 5 for me. I mean, when an episode that's so talky is just as great as some of the Killer of the Week stuff, it just shows you the strength of the people that created it and the writers, and just Brian Fuller's just a master at this. As for favorite scene, it's a tough one. I'm going to have to go with the last scene, even though I would say the moment that I talked about. But I really love just seeing the full menace of Hannibal Lecter on full blast. Like, I'm taking off my human suit and letting you know who I am. I'm a badass. Just letting you know that your dad is dead because he's not as good as I am. And
I tried to warn your daddy.
Yeah, I'm going to try to warn you, and you're going to be joining your daddy soon in hell.
Jeez.
So, hey, let's
want some soup?
Yeah, I want some soup. Or do you feel a little hot? So I think that's probably my favorite, just because because this whole time he's been trying to sort of like not show who he is, and we finally have a character where he just lets her know what he's about and that she should be really scared what's going to happen next.
Well, she knew. So he wasn't going to pretend at that point. He was like, all right, well, this is it. Because I came here.
But there's a difference between knowing something or thinking you know something and then having the truth come out. It's even scarier. Because I mean, I could think you're a killer or whatever, but until you actually said, I don't know that.
Yeah, but I think that kind of, I think he had some respect for that.
Oh yeah. Anybody that can figure stuff out. That's why he wants that friendship with Will, because he realizes that Will's not, even though he can be manipulated, he's a smart cookie.
I think he's genuinely sad that he has to kill her. Honestly, that whole speech that he gave had to be very cathartic for him, because it's like the first time he's actually said that out loud to someone else. And then I think he actually did care for her in a way, that he does feel sorry that he has to kill her, but he still has to kill her, like regardless of that feeling, because he does see something in her.
Well, I think he was hoping that him and Will could run off as baby daddies to Abigail, and they could live as a whole serial killer family together. And they're not as cold-hearted as him. They're not as narcissistic as him, and he's disappointed in them. It's like, I'm not going to adopt you anymore, Abigail. Sorry.
You're out.
All right. Yeah, I like this too. I didn't really realize that this was such a restrained episode until we discussed it tonight. It didn't bother me at all. I was so wrapped up. For 11 episodes, we've been living with these characters, and we've gotten to know them and love them and understand how they relate to each other, and to see all this playing out is just thrilling. And even though there's no murderer of the week, or you will, or serial killer of the week, it still had so much tension with everything bubbling to the surface and all our characters being racing around each other in like little circles. It's nerve-wracking and exciting, and the dialogue is so rich. This is a great episode. I'll give it a 4.75. Don't do that. Don't do that. And I'm going to say my favorite scene. Did you snicker at me? I'm going to say that my favorite scene is the dream sequence that he has with the lady who catches on fire and she turns the stag. Just the visual of it, because the horns come out, and that has become such symbolism. We see it again, right? Even in this episode, and it's his mind putting all the pieces together, right? He's putting the representation of that stag together with that particular death, and also the horns and what that means, and he just put it all together. Didn't realize what it all together was until he got to the back to the shed. where was that, in Indiana, Illinois? I don't know, somewhere. But still,
I don't remember, actually.
Midwest.
Yeah.
And also there's something very important to pay attention as we finish up here is they talked about the difference between hunting and fishing. And remember that becomes
the
important.
stalking and the luring.
Yeah, that becomes important.
Okay.
Right, Chris? Right.
Well, it does. And if you remember early on in the season, there's that one part where Hannibal goes into Will's house and he's creating lures.
The fishing lure?
Yes.
And he messes with his lure.
Okay.
That's Hannibal for you.
Hannibal.
People's lures. All right.
Is that a sexual thing?
Is it? All right, guys, that's our review of Hannibal Season 1, Episode 12. All the ridiculousness aside, this was a great episode, and I hope you enjoyed reliving it with us. Christopher, Vanessa, thank you so much for joining me. This was a lot of fun.
Oh, it's always a blast to talk about Hannibal.
You're welcome.
No, there's the accent. You held it off. Let's say goodnight.
Good night.
Do you hear them? The children of the night.
Good night.
Gruesome Magazine.